Coming up on The Returned.
A figure of a man. He jumped on top of me and grabbed me by my shirt. I'm before I could take my second breath, I heard, "Oh my God, he's alive." Those are the first words that I heard. My hands shot up to my head. This is surreal. Oh my God, is this really happening? I could feel the metal gun barrel pushing against my calf, and they fired off the first gunshot. Oh my God.
Hi, and welcome to The Returned. Here's to everything we'll discover together. Hi, and welcome to The Returned. If you're new here, I'm MJ. In this space, we share near-death stories, out-of-body experiences, spiritual awakenings, sign from spirits, and the journeys of healers and lightworkers from around the world. And oh my goodness, I am really excited to bring you such a powerful and emotional story that will stay with you long after the conversation ends. Today, I'm honored to sit with Creig Morris, who, after a violent attack that left him dead, spent 10 to 15 minutes on the other side. Creig, welcome to the event. Welcome to the event, I was going to say.
Well,
Creig, welcome to The Return.
Could be an event. That's a neat twist. But yeah, that's fine. No, I'm actually honored to be here. I'm thank you for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to share some events in my life, with your audience. It's a pleasure. There's not a day goes by that I don't think about some of the things that have happened to me. This will be there will be some surreal moments for your audience. I promise you that, because it is for me.
Well, I definitely know that, because this is our second time trying to record this.
That is correct.
Right?
We've had a few.
So we had a little bit of technical difficulties in the first one, but that's okay. We're on track now, and it's going to work.
It's all
this
for the
time.
better. It's all for the better. But what I started to say was the
right.
The event, which was a home invasion where I was actually murdered. And we talked prior to this interview. I wanted to share something that had happened earlier in my life, which will give the audience a clear understanding of where my head was at, because you couldn't have foreseen what happened ahead of time. It just happened.
Just before we get on to that, Creig, do you think that we could also go through just a little bit about who you were before that first event that led to your second event, just to give the audience a little idea of you?
No, I appreciate
and
that.
who you were.
That. Well, I live in Central America, and specifically in Panama. I left the United States in 1993 at the tender age of 36. I had sold the business and left for Latin America. But prior to that, my childhood, I was raised in a military home. My dad is a retired chief master sergeant, 30 years in the Air Force. So for me growing up, it was yes, sir, no, sir, right away, sir. And my dad was my hero. I mean, my parents have been married 70 years now. They're 91 years old and still here. And so I was raised in a military family. And sports, I was very involved in sport athletics. I had the opportunity to play semi-professional baseball for 4 years, and men's fast pitch softball at the professional level for 10 years. But along the way, I was in business. I had started my own companies, and at the tender age of 23, I became a Christian. That was when I had my introduction to religion, or organized religion. I say that now, but at the time it was a good experience. My mentor was a man that I looked up to greatly, and years after that, I found myself involved heavily in a lot of full gospel businessmen association events and so forth. I was involved in everything that you can imagine in the ministry work, just short of pastoring a church. But by the age of 40, I had asked too many tough questions the last 5 years as a Christian that I kind of studied my way out. And then it got back to the foundation of everything, which is what my parents trained us to be respectful. Treat others the way you want them to treat you. And if you can't do that, you're never going to live a life of integrity. There won't be honesty and truthfulness in your life if you can't, you know, give respect. And you certainly can't expect to get respect if you disrespect others. So that was my upbringing. But now I find myself at the tender age of 27 and married a short period of time, an infant son, and I was what I'm going to describe for your audience, and I know they'll be able to relate to because I had a near-death experience without dying, and I'll get to that, in a car, just driving. And so some people would say, of the people that I've shared this with, which is probably no more than 24 people in my lifetime. So we're going back 40 years, and I've only shared this with a few close friends and immediate family. That's it. The last 3 or 4 months, I started watching out of body experience testimony, lots of them. And that's when I started thinking, um, I should be sharing this experience with a larger audience. I thought this might be an opportunity, but I didn't know where it was going. So I put out a test text in a community chat forum where a lot of out of body experiencers were sharing space. And I received an invitation, and I think that's how you originally saw my a testimony about the home invasion. And so that is what led to that led to Creig meeting MJ, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But today I want to go beyond that and share something that happened 40 years ago because it's something I think about every day. We live in a world that a lot of people have become accustomed to, and we don't usually ask certain questions until there's a certain thing happen in your life or something tweaks your curiosity or jolts your world, so to speak. But long before the movie The Matrix came out in 1999, I experienced something which I described as, well, others have said that's supernatural, that's a miracle, that can't happen. Physically, that's impossible. And they're right. But so I've resolved just in my mind to say that, okay, there was a tear in the matrix that day. There was a glitch in the movie. Something happened, and it happened to save my life. And that's the only way I can describe it. So this is now 1983. I'm 27 years old, and I was just driving home on a uh, what would be considered in the state of Washington between Seattle and Tacoma. There's two big hills, the East Hill and the West Hill, and so there's canyon roads and then state highways. I'm driving on a state highway, which is the Peasley Canyon Road. It's a very good road. It's not 4 lane; it's 2 lane. Uh, it's not narrow, but it's you can drive the speed limit, which was 50, and everybody drove 60 because it was safe. And so to set the scene, I have to drive down the hill around curves in the foothills. Everybody's done that, driving around mountain curves. Well, at the apex of every one of these curves, technically it's a blind spot, but it's not a hairpin curve. It's a long curve, but still you only got 3 or 4 seconds on each side of the curve itself to see what's coming. That's all you got, 3 or 4 seconds. And at 60 miles an hour, at 88 feet per second, I did a little math before the interview today, so people could realize that everything I'm about to share with you happened in 1 second. Actually, less than a second, less than 1 second. The road that I'm driving on is a road that I have driven literally over 1,000 times. That was the way home. And I was on my way at 1 o'clock in the afternoon to pick up my son from my mother-in-law's house. So I'm driving a big car. To tell you how big, we used to call them land yachts, boats with wheels. This is a big Ford, a used car. My wife at the time drove the newer car. This was a second car. And this car was longer, 8 inches longer than a 72 Cadillac. So this is a big car, heavy car. I'm driving around the curve at 60 miles an hour. I wasn't, MJ, I swear, I wasn't even wearing my seatbelt. In those days, I very rarely did. And this is just a highway, no stoplights. I'm just driving. I look up at the last possible moment that I could see what was in front of me. There was a bicyclist, a cyclist in the middle of my lane on a state highway. Now, I don't know if he had a death wish or just thought it was the middle of the day and there's no traffic. I don't know what's going on in his mind. But by the time I see him, just remember 30 meters, 30 yards, 30 meters is the same thing. It's about 100 feet. That's how far he is in front of me. I have to decide, I have to react instantly or he's going to die. I'm going to hit him. There's no way he could avoid it. It's less than 1 second. And to this day, I don't know how I missed him, but I took the steering wheel. I'm in the right-hand lane and I jerked it as fast as I could to the left. I miss him. I don't know how. I don't know how I miss him. But as soon as the car crossed the double yellow lines into the other lane, it's only 2 lanes, the other car showed up. I don't have another 30 meters. I don't have 100 feet. It's over. I can't go back where I was. I can't go back into my lane. I can't go further to the left. Remember, this is the foothills. It's a mountain, and the mountainside goes right down to the edge, the shoulder of the road. There is no shoulder on that side, maybe inches, no more. So I'm sitting in the driver's seat. I'm looking at a car in front of me, and the only thing in my mind at that specific moment was death. My foot has never left the gas. There was no time to brake, no time to turn the steering, nothing. So I took my hands off the wheel, clashed them, and put them in my lap as I'm looking through my windshield, through the windshield of the oncoming car, it's really not oncoming. The front of the cars are almost touching. I'm looking at the hood of my car, and I can't tell where the hood of my car ends and the hood of his car begins. It's a collision now. I'm expecting a large explosion, but there was nothing I could do. Nothing. And in that last split second, I also remember seeing the driver of the car through 2 windshields, and he was pushing on his steering wheel and pushing back, like, bracing for impact, because there was nothing either one of us could do. I was in my wrong lane, driving 60 miles an hour. He's got to be driving at least 50, the speed limit. I was in his blind spot. He was in my blind spot, but all of a sudden, we are grill to grill. As out of the corner of my eye, I'm looking at him, but out of the corner of my left eye, I could see that there was a woman in the passenger seat. I'm assuming his wife, and 3 small heads in the back seat. Now it's apparent to me there's 5 people in that car, and we're going to die. We're all going to die. MJ, we talked offline a little bit. We both played some sports when we were younger, and I remember. I don't remember the year, but you remember when in the National Football League they came up with this instant replay rule, where they would call timeout and they would look at the cameras to try to decide, did that runner go out of bounds or not? And they would actually slow the camera down so slow to where it was frame by frame frozen. And they would look at his foot and say, yep, he touched the white line.
That's right.
And they would make a ruling. Okay. As I'm looking at the cars and I'm waiting for the explosion, everything stopped. Everything just stopped for a fraction of a second. I can't explain it. And I'll also say that it was so quiet. You know that phrase, you could hear a pin drop? Oh, no, it was much quieter than that. Much quieter than that. It was like, I don't know, I was out in the middle of a black hole someplace. It was just no sound. It was perfectly quiet. And I was listening to my AM radio. That's all I had. Driving along, minding my own business, just going to pick up my son. and now it's just deathly quiet. At that moment when I'm anticipating dying, my car moved straight to the right slowly. I mean, this is happening in like 1/10, 1/20th. If you could take a VCR speed and just reduce it down to almost no move. It's just crawling so slow. The car moved straight to my right, and then it went forward maybe 2 car lengths, and then it moved straight to the left. So it moved this way, this way, this way, straight lines like a box. Impossible, impossible physically. That can't happen. Now, if you're driving
Wow.
at a high speed and you turn quickly left or right, your body is thrown in the opposite direction. Inertia, it just throws you in the opposite direction. It's normal. I was sitting perpendicular, straight up and down in my seat with my hands clasped in my lap the whole time, watching this happen. And it was quiet. But then as the car went to the right and started forward, 2 of my right rear tires, both my rear tires and my right front tire was off the asphalt in my correct lane in the shoulder of the road, which was maybe a 8 or 10 foot of gravel and rocks. And then I could hear for a moment, it sounded like gunshots underneath my car. The rocks and the gravel were spraying up against the undercarriage of the car. And that prompted me to look in my rear view mirror. And behind me, I could see a 40, 50-foot plume of smoke, a cloud of from the dirt of my car. Now, so the car moves straight forward and then straight back again in 90 degrees. I hear the car scraping the side of the shoulder of the road. And remember, to my left, there's a mountainside that comes down to the actual road itself. I believe if you were on that mountain a few hundred feet up and you were looking down at the curve, at the apex of this curve on this mountain highway, you would have seen a car coming from your left and my car coming from your right. You would have seen a bicyclist. But when all three met, my car, the bicycle, because I don't know to this day how I missed him, and the 2 cars, front of, grill to grill, I think if you blinked it in time, as we think of time, I think if you blinked, you just missed it. It happened that fast. But to me, it was like it lasted a minute or longer, and it's not over. So my car goes to the right, straight, back to the left. It's in my correct lane. There was no accident. Okay. But how I felt at that moment, I've had, it was like, I, I can't describe this other than to say it was love. I felt as if someone had wrapped a blanket around me and I was protected. I knew that, but I believe I was protected by love. And that's what saved my life. Now, who did that? I don't know. I like to think the hand of God just said, no, he's not going to die today, and just rearrange the cards, and God could do whatever he wants. Today, I would think that, it was a divine appointment, sure, but there was something going on in the realm beyond this one that I couldn't see. Maybe my soul family. I don't know. I can't answer that question. I just know that there was a tear in the matrix. And this is 16, 17 years before the matrix came out, before we started using that phrase. And starting in 2000 or so, I used to make jokes with my friends saying, we're living in Truman's world. This is a movie. I'm Truman. Who are you? Because this isn't real. And I had proof of that in my own life, that there was something going on beyond what I could see. I adopted a phrase when I was 19 years old that I still use to this day. And I know you've heard this, and I know that your audience has heard this, but you can apply this phrase to pretty much everything in this life that we experience. And that is this. I mean, you can apply this to everything. I don't care if it's finance, religion, science, anything. All is not, all is not as it appears to be. And sometimes we don't know, though. We can ask questions. We can say why, where, and how, but we just don't know the answer. So now I'm in my car, totally calm, totally relaxed. My foot has never left the gas pedal, MJ. I'm the speedometer still says 60 miles an hour. And I looked over my shoulder and back in the front, and I'm having this lightning fast conversation in my mind. I must be dead. But if I'm dead, I'm thinking I must have died instantly. And so I didn't even hear the explosion when the two cars collided head on. Because there's no way anybody's going to survive that. And so I'm thinking I must be dead. But if I'm dead, why am I in this car? I cannot be in the sweet by and by. I cannot have passed from this life to the next in my 1972 Ford. That's not possible. So I've got questions, and but I'm not driving. I'm not MJ. My hands are still in my lap, and I'm asking questions, thinking I'm dead. The car is driving itself, and it took me a half a minute to realize that I'd gone around a couple more curves, up and over hills. The steering wheel is moving, and the car is driving itself perfectly in my correct lane. I'm not driving. And I thought, yeah, that's odd. And I'm having this conversation with myself. And I made a mental note. This goes on for about 5 miles. I know the road like the back of my hand, and it's about a 10-mile drive to get to my mother-in-law's house on this state highway, which is the Peaslee Canyon Road. It's just a foothill highway, no stoplights. And so after a few minutes, about 5 minutes, my hands are still clasped in my lap. And this is surreal. This is totally beyond something you could comprehend in your natural mind. And so I thought, well, I gotta go pick up Lance. I gotta go pick up my son. He's still in diapers. And so I reached up, and for the first time since missing the bicyclist, not colliding with the other car, I touched the steering wheel. But then the reality started sitting in, and I didn't take my foot off the gas, but I could feel a presence. Remember, I told you I felt like a blanket wrapped around me? I was so happy. I mean, through all of this, I was very calm, very, very peaceful. And and for a few minutes, I thought I'm dead, but I'm still here. Why am I still here? I should not be here. And so, uh, this blanket that was wrapped around me, if I could describe it this way, it was almost as if I was submerged in water, and I could feel a tingling in my toes. In my toes, my foot has never left the gas pedal. I'm still driving 60 miles an hour, but I felt a tingling in the floorboards and around my feet, and then this sensation rose, got higher and higher and higher, slowly, slowly, slowly. I felt it move up my calves, past my waist, over my shoulders, and then when it got to the top of my head, it was gone. And at that point, I started shaking. I started shaking, and I got really nervous, and I took my foot off the gas for the first time. And I had never touched the brake, but now I'm steering the car. The car had been driving itself for 5 miles. I just let the inertia of the car slow itself down. I never touched the brake. When the car was moving so slow, I finally turned the steering wheel onto the shoulder of the road and turned the car off. And I sat there for about 30 to 45 minutes, literally crying and thanking God for saving my life, because I knew that I was still here, but I shouldn't be. And so after that time had passed, I started the car, and I drove another 10 minutes to my mother-in-law's house, picked up my son, and it was probably almost 3 weeks after that before I could even share the experience with my wife at the time, because it had such an effect on my life. And so as you start asking yourself questions like, why me? You know, you hear about miracles and supernatural this, and sometimes there's, paranormal and all these things, and you don't know what to believe, and you never think something like that's going to happen to you. And nothing could prepare you for this. Nothing could prepare you for this. But I think that maybe one of the reasons that happened was I think there might have been something going on before I was born. I think there really could have been something happening prior to me being born in this life as part of a process to wake me up, to wake me up. Because we literally are living, I call it the Truman Show. We're living in a movie. Everybody here has felt at some point, like I know I have, you have a deja vu moment. You feel like your life is scripted and you're living a script. A lot of time to think about it, but I didn't have answers. I've actually been able to get more answers in the last 20 years because of information that's been available about this world that we live in, testimonies from other people that had near death experiences, that sort of thing. And I had no idea that that experience was going to probably be the reason I was prepared. I wasn't ready, but I was at least mentally prepared in my mind for another event that was going to take place 3.5 years ago, May 22nd, 2022. I'm in the mountains of Panama. I'm visiting a friend, just visiting. And the reason I was there is because we didn't know how much time Morris had. I'm now 69. This happened when I was 66, and he's about 12 years older than me. So he's getting up towards 80. And without help from the pharmaceutical side, this man would have been dead long ago. He's not doing well. He barely weighs 50 kilos, which is a little over 100 pounds. So I'm in a little 2-bedroom house in the hills of Panama, and it's not finished. 4 of the 8 windows did not have glass. The concrete floors are just concrete. There's no tile. You know, Latins build houses poco a poco, little by little, as funds are available. And Morris was living with a longtime friend, a Panamanian who I know, who also spent some time in the United States. And this gentleman was like Morris's man Friday. He would drive him here, do errands for him, help him with banking, that sort of thing. And when I was there, I became that guy. I was the appointed chauffeur, house cleaner, feed the dogs, just visiting with a friend. And I appreciated the solitude. It's very quiet. Not a lot of neighbors, very few neighbors up on the mountainside. And this particular house, so it's a 2-bedroom house. It's unfinished. There's no electricity. There's no electricity in the house. So outside on the house is built into an embankment next to a concrete wall. There's a huge generator bigger than your coffee table. And it ran all the time because we had 100-foot cables, one for the lights, one for the refrigerator, one for the freezer. And, we had electricity. It was just via a generator. So one night, we were sitting in the living room talking, as we often did. Usually went to sleep around 9 o'clock. There's nothing else to do. It's pitch black outside and get a good night's sleep, right? So we're drinking a hot cup of tea, and at 8:30 at night, the lights went out. The lights just went out. Now, when the lights go out, and you're on a mountainside, and the closest neighbor is probably 1,000 yards away, it's black, pitch black. And so I took my little flashlight, and we had a couple of 12-volt batteries in the living room as backup. So I turned the switch, and we had a lamp. So we had some light in the salon, in the living room, and that's it. Now, when the lights went out, the generator's still running. So we immediately thought one of the dogs disconnected a cable. This had happened before. No big deal. So I put my shoes on, got my flashlight. It still had my flashlight. So I walk out the back door, down the embankment, around the side of the house, pitch black, except for my flashlight. And I look behind the generator. Now there's 300-foot cables, and then a concrete wall dividing the generator between the cables. All 3 cables were not one, but all 3 were disconnected. But then I noticed in a split second that, wait a minute, they're not disconnected. The 3-prong plugs are still in the sockets in the generator. And all 3 cables had been cut. I don't like somebody taking sniffs and just cupped him. And for one half of a second, my flashlight is looking at these three wires that had been severed. And I thought, that's not right. There's something wrong. And that's the last thing I remember. I was no longer behind the house looking at a generator. I was in, let's just call it paradise. I was in heaven. I just instantly, 1 split second you're here, and then a split second goes by and you're gone. And so I'm immediately taken back, but I felt, oh my God. Remember I was talking earlier about in the car, I felt this blanket around me, like it was just pure love. And I was totally at peace and tranquil. I never felt that at that level. That's what I felt. I felt it again. But now I'm in my body. I'm in my body. I'm touching my hands. I'm looking, I'm barefoot. I notice that, hey, what am I wearing? I was wearing like a white robe. Okay. And it was just above my knees. It was very comfortable. I thought, wow, this feels like it's like I'm wearing spandex. It's like, skin tight, but it was comfortable, and it was white. It was just white. And then I looked down, and I had a gold band around my waist, like a sash. These clothes would have reminded you of something I remember seeing in old style movies during Roman times, where they wore these little robes and tunics and things like that. I noticed that my arms were bare, except I didn't have shirt sleeves. I had a covering just over the top, the crest of my shoulder, and it was at a point. And I thought, well, that's different. I've never worn clothes like this. But I'm taking in my environment, my surroundings, like details, and I'm looking at these clothes, and there was no seams, there was no stitching, no seams, no nothing. It was just like a one piece robe. But then I noticed a kind of a glow, and I looked at my chest, and there was a gold emblem. It wasn't a letter. It wasn't really an emblem. It was just a design, an artistic something. I can't describe it, but I noticed that it was gold, and it wasn't like on the material. It was the material. It was in the material. It was all one. So I thought, well, this is interesting. And then I had a thought, if I'm in heaven, which this must be heaven, I'm in paradise, then I must be dead. There's no other reason to be here unless I'm dead. But I have no recollection of dying. I don't know how that happened. I'm dead and I'm in heaven. And so I said, and when I said, so I'm dead, or I could not be here, a voice spoke to me and said, that is correct. You're dead. And then I started talking, but I wasn't talking. I was thinking, and I could hear my voice. It was telepathic. I could hear my whole voice in like 360 surround sound. It was loud outside of my head. And I started talking, and there was a response. And then I asked a question. There was another response. And this is going on at lightning fast speed. And at the same time, I'm having this conversation just off the cuff. Like, I started asking some questions. I was noticing that I'm in a beautiful meadow. It's beautiful. There are mountains to my right and my left, like foothills. And I'm in this beautiful meadow. I can't describe the colors because it was beyond anything I'd ever seen. I've done some reading, and I know that in this world, we don't see 0.003 of the light spectrum. We just can't. Our brains can only decode so much. It's way less than 1%. Well, the grass I was standing on, it was grass, and it was green, but I can't describe that green because I'd never seen any green like that. But I was walking on it, and it felt, I could feel every blade of grass touching my feet. It was just a bizarre sensation. But then I noticed that the trees and the flowers, and I heard water. So I looked to my left, and there was like a small river, a creek, like you'd see in the mountains. And I watched it, and it curved and wound around, and it went way into the distance for several miles. And I could see in the distance a body of water, like a lake. And I thought, well, I'm going to go check that out. But then I noticed the tree that was about 30 feet from me. And when I noticed it, I realized that when I looked at this tree, I wouldn't just look at the tree. I could see every little nuance and crevice and crack of the bark, the trunk of the tree. It was just high definition times 1,000. And so I'm going, that's interesting. That's actually kind of beautiful. And then I looked at the branch. It was like a big oak tree, that kind of a spread with big leaves. And then I looked at the branches and the leaves, and I realized that I could look at the leaves and I could see the little intricate parts of the leaf. And this is about 30, 40 feet away. And then I turned my head and I could look past the tree into the distance where that body of water was. Okay. And there were other trees up on the mountainside. Now, this has got to be 500 yards away, which is what, a quarter of a mile? And I was looking in the distance and I saw those trees. I hesitated for a minute. I looked at them again, and it was like you zoom in on a camera. I could not only see the leaves of the tree next to me 30 feet away, I could see the leaves on the trees a quarter of a mile away, and the barks and the trees and the details of that. And I thought, well, now that's kind of cool. And then I thought, let's go check out the creek. So I'm still talking. I'm asking questions and I'm getting answers. And I'll tell you a little bit about that. But most of what I was talking about was a culmination of everything I lived my life around and what I knew was going on in my life right then and what was going to happen, some of the things that I had planned to do in my life. And I was asking about these events and getting confirmations of things that were happening right now, that were going to happen. But I was asking for confirmation. And I was missing those answers. And I never saw this person. I'm thinking I must be talking to God. I'm having a conversation, and it's wonderful, with God. Today, I'm not so sure. I think maybe I was talking with someone that knew me from the other side, maybe part of my soul family. But anyway, I turned to go to the river, and I realized that, which was probably 100, 200 feet away. I could see it, but it was a short distance. And as soon as I turned rather quickly, and I wasn't walking on the grass. I was flying over the grass, just flying. You just think it, and it happened. So, and that took me back. So I'm flying, and then I thought, wait a minute, and I stopped. And in midair, as I just stopped, my body just slowly floated right back down to where I was standing on level ground again. And I go, well, that was interesting. And then I had a thought, well, it was internal. I started feeling pressure. I can't describe it. It was grief. It was grief. I started feeling my heart got so heavy because I started thinking about, all right, as beautiful as this is, my kids, I can't leave them like this. I started thinking of my sons. I have 5 biological sons. I have 2 stepchildren. And 2 of my closest friends in the world are my stepkids because I've been their dad the longest, over 20 years. And they're in their early 20s. And I thought they're going to be devastated. This is not good. They depend on it. And we have plans. And I have these other plans. And now I have confirmation of those. So I can't stay here. So I can't stay here. I don't know if it's possible at this point. I don't know if I'm there. And that's the rest of my life right there. I'm in heaven and it's over. I died. I'm here. But then I can't. The grief was just beyond the pain in my heart because, I knew that I was dead. I didn't know how I died. I just knew that I was in heaven. So with all the conviction in my heart that I could muster, by the way, this valley that I'm in, I'll just say one more thing about where I was at. If you can imagine all the colors of the rainbow times 1,000, and just undescribable. This valley that I was in was like a valley that was wrapped in a rainbow. The colors were beyond anything that I could describe in words. I can't. But the feeling, the sensation, the love that I felt, beyond anything you could. The love that we experience in this world. I will say this, and no matter how good it is, and it could be the best of the best of the best, it's still measured. It's still measured. It's not completely unconditional. It's not without limit. But on the other side, there is no limit. And so I got saturated with, I was in a love bubble that you just can't describe. Okay. And I felt that same level of acceptance and and protection, if you will, when I was in my car 40 years earlier. It's the same thing. So even though I didn't die 40 years earlier, I had one foot in two worlds. I believe that to this day. So now I'm with all my conviction that I could muster up in my heart. And I did not know if it was possible. I just knew that part of me didn't want to leave. Part of me did not want to leave. Why? This is home. I never felt so at home. But I didn't want to stay because of the love and the feelings and all those heartstrings from loved ones and family here. So what I said was no. I just put my foot down and I said, no, I'm not dying today. I'm not going to die today. Not like this, because I had no reason to die. I was in perfect health. My life had been taken from me. I wasn't sick. I didn't have an accident. I did not know the circumstances at that point. But I said, I'm not dying today, not like this. And I put my hand down, not like this. As soon as I said this, I was instantly back in my physical body here. And I was gasping for air, okay, taking the deepest breath you can imagine. I know now that I was actually dead for at least 15 minutes, because when I went outside to check the generator, it was 8:32. I never forget the time. I looked at my watch before I went outside, 8:32. I know that my attackers left at 9:45, and I'm real good with time. What I'm going to talk about now, that hour of my life. The first 15 minutes I was dead. My life was taken from me. I don't remember being hit. I had been hit from the side, okay, from behind. I would have never heard somebody sneaking up behind me because the generator was running. It was like standing next to a tractor trailer. It was loud, okay? And so I was struck from the side, from behind to the head. And the doctors and the investigating, what we would call the FBI there, the investigating police force, because it was a crime. It was a home invasion. We were attacked by armed military soldiers. We think they were military police for Panama, off duty, but nevertheless, a gang of military police. Imagine that. And so I was hit with what we think was a crowbar because it left a huge check, a V mark on my head. Okay, just split my skull wide open. And I think you have the pictures that you can splice into this podcast that I sent you. But I took this deep breath. Okay, and as I exhaled that breath, a man jumped. I was conscious of somebody standing over me. There was actually three, but I only saw one. They had large flashlights, so it was well lit where they shined the flashlight, and I could see this a figure of a man. He jumped down on top of me, spread eagle over my midsection, and grabbed me by my shirt. And I'm before I could take my second breath, I heard these words in Spanish, but I'll translate for you. My 30 years in Latin America, my Spanish is as fluent as it's going to be. And it was unmistakable. He screamed in my face, "Oh my God, he's alive!" Those are the first words that I heard. Now I'm taking a second breath. And as I'm taking my second breath, my hands, now this was just a physical reflex. My hands shot up to my head and grabbed my head. The pain was off the charts. I've taken one breath. I've heard those words that I just said. My God, he's alive. I've grabbed my head and I'm taking another breath, getting ready to scream. And I scream so loud you can hear me for 10 miles. My hands are cupped over my head. There is more soft tissue material outside of my head, like the size of a baseball. Okay. They had split my skull wide open, and that was soft, spongy material from inside my head on the outside. And my heart had not been pumping for 15 minutes. Now there's blood. My heart's pumping and there's blood shooting out of my head like it's coming out of a garden hose. Okay. That was that much blood. I was covered in blood instantly and I could feel it. And I'm actually trying to press what's outside of my head. I'm trying to press it back in my head. This is surreal. This is not a movie. And when it's your blood, you're just, oh my God, is this really happening? Is this really happening? And at the same time, I start screaming before I can take another breath, and I'm dealing with my head and the pain of it all. I felt pressure on the backside of my left leg, about 6 to 8 inches, 6 inches below my knee, in my calf. Now, what this was, one of the other men, they all had rifles, pistols, bulletproof vests, ski masks. I only saw eyes. They were wearing leather gloves with the fingertips showing, just like they ride here on the secret police on their motorcycles all around Panama. I've seen them every day for the almost 20 years I lived in Panama. And they were very organized. They knew what they were doing. And they were very disciplined. And I felt this pressure though behind my back leg, my left leg. And one of them had taken his rifle and pressed the gun barrel against the back of my leg, and he leaned into it with all his body weight. I could feel the pressure from the gun barrel, the metal gun barrel, pushing against my calf, against the very bone of my leg, and they fired off the first round, the first gunshot. Oh my God! I screamed. I think you could hear me for 10 miles. The pain of that gunshot hurt so bad. It was as if somebody had lit a welding torch inside of my leg. The burning sensation was off the chart. And I know they did that to incapacitate me. But my friend was not a threat, the man in the house. If there was going to be any resistance to invading the home, it would have been me. Okay, they had already lured me outside by cutting the lights. Now one of them is freaking out because I'm alive when I was dead. And so they shot me in the leg, I think, just to incapacitate me so that I couldn't resist. Believe me, resisting was the last thing on my mind. I was focused on the pain in my head. Now I've got pain in my head and I just been shot in the leg. At that point, there was 2 men over me now, and they were interrogating me, I'm screaming in pain. I'm bleeding all over myself. It had rained that day. There was mud. I'm laying on my side and I'm looking at all the liquid from the rain that day, the mud. And it's a very surreal feeling to look at the water or pool of water you're laying in, and there's more red than brown. There's more red. There's more of my blood than there is mud. It was all me. And so, they're interrogating me, and they're saying things like, how many people are in the house? They haven't gone in the house at this point. They probably were waiting for my friend to come outside. I told you, he's sickly. He's sitting on the couch wondering what's taking Creig so long. I'm sure he heard the gunshot though. So I don't know what, I can't answer that. But they're interrogating me. How many people are in the house? Don't lie. If you lie to me, I'm going to kill you. Are there any weapons in the house? That was another question. Tell me if there are any weapons in the house. How many people are in the house? Are there any weapons? And don't lie. If you lie, I'm going to kill you. And MJ, I don't know why I said this. In hindsight, it was probably stupid. But I was looking at this man's eyes, and when somebody is excited, their eyes get dilated. When they're afraid, their eyes just shrink down to pinholes. This man, I felt I could tell by his voice inflection, he was more afraid of me than I was of him at this point. And I screamed in his face, "You already killed me once." I mean, I said it just that. I screamed right in his face. He's just 5 inches from my eye. We're eye to eye. And I screamed, "You already killed me once." And that set it back. But at that point, they decided to charge the house. One of them stayed with me, and they put, not handcuffs, but they put the zip lines that police use to tie zip lines around your wrist. They put that around my hands, but I had the presence of mind to hold my hands apart because I hate being tied down. And so when they felt it was tight, they let go. Later, I was able to slip my hand out without any problem because they didn't know that my hands were not My wrists were not together. They didn't bother putting the zip lines around my ankles because they shot me in the leg. I couldn't. I was laying there, not going to resist anything. A lot of things going through my mind, MJ. For example, after they shot me, I thought, oh my God, how many surgeries and how many titanium rods before I can walk again? Because I knew that had done some damage in my leg, but I didn't know what the damage was. I had no clue. Um, I couldn't move. I'm going into shock. And so the two of the guys left. I could hear their footsteps. One went behind me and the other one went in front of me. So they ran in the front door and the back door at the same time. I'm laying on the side of the house closer to the back door in the porch where the generator was. So as they enter the house, I hear 7 more gunshots. Okay. And I didn't know that they killed my friend. I didn't know that they might have shot the dogs. Um, Show of force, it was a siege. They just attacked the house. Okay. The other man stayed with me to watch me. The other two guys were in the house and I could hear they were just upending everything, throwing, later, turning over the mattresses, throwing the couches, looking for money. This goes on for a half hour, 40 minutes. And those two guys finally came outside. They finally came back outside. I do not know what happened in the house. I'm in the mud, just trying to stay conscious. I'm feeling weak, and my left eye, they did not hit my eye or my jaw or my teeth. Thank God. They only hit my skull. But that, the trauma from that blow is what killed me instantly. See, that's why I couldn't remember how I died. There was no memory of being hit. So I don't remember. There was no pain. I was killed instantly. I don't remember the force of the blow, falling, hitting the ground. I remember nothing of that when I was in heaven. And because in my mind, it didn't happen. I was dead before I hit the ground. So they came back at the house and they're interrogating me again. Where's the money? See, two gringos having a cup of tea, sitting in the living room on a Tuesday night, minding our own business. And now we've got 3 armed soldiers. And I found out in the days afterwards, there were 7, because when they investigated everything on the hillside, the neighbors did talk at later. And there was 2 other soldiers in the street about 50 yards apart. That's 5, and 2 more in 2 getaway pickups once they had robbed us to leave in and I guess go in different directions. So it was a group of 7 very nasty guys, very nasty. So now they're interrogating me again on the ground. I'm just trying to stay awake because I knew that I can't go to sleep. And if you suffered a concussion, it's bad to go to sleep. You might not wake up. All these things are going through my mind. And so I was dead and now I'm back. And at one point I thought, why did I come back? If I'd have known this was waiting for me, I think I stayed where I was, but I didn't have a clue. I came back for love of my kids. That's why I came back for it. And things that I had planned to do here and helping others here. That was the sole purpose of coming back. And so they're asking me, where's the money? And I said, I don't live here. I'm visiting my friend. I don't know. Why would I know where there's money in the house? And they were upset. So one of them went through my pockets. And here's what they got for all of their trouble, all of their planning and this organized armed attack. They got $50 cash out of my left front pocket and a phone card out of my right pocket. That's it. And they were willing to kill us both for that. So they're asking me, where's the money? I don't know. And they went through my pockets. And so just to be extra mean and nasty, because they were really upset that there was no money, and this had probably been something they planned for some time. I don't know at this point that any of my neighbors might not have been involved in this. I don't know. I'm getting to some interesting peripheral information here, but I felt that pressure. I felt pressure again on my left leg, just like an hour earlier. Well, about let's see, an hour, 45 minutes earlier. I felt this pressure, but it wasn't behind my same leg, but not behind my knee, but not 6 inches below my knee. It was a few inches above my ankle. Same leg, straight line down. I felt that same pressure. And I thought, oh no. And so he leaned into, I'm laying flat on my left hand side. He leans into it with all his body weight and he fired off the second round. So now they shot me with their rifles twice in my left leg. And I'm thinking, oh my God, the damage, the bones are going to be destroyed. I don't even know at this point if there's an exit wound. I felt my thigh at one point because my whole body is saturated in blood from my head wound. I'm just saturated in blood. Um, and my pants, I had one red blue jeans, but the left leg is red. The right leg you could tell it was denim, but, they fired a second round. And then the third of these three guys, I saw this coming, but there was nothing I could do about it. I guess he wanted to participate to just inflict more pain because they were upset that they're not getting rich that night. Okay. I saw him out of the corner of my eye. I saw him take his rifle and turn it reverse the directions. And he hit me in the back of my head with all of his strength with the rifle butt. And you've got a picture of that too. That was 9 more stitches in the back of just a big gaping hole in the back of my head. My head was jolted from the blow, but I didn't feel any pain. It didn't hurt. I was in such a state of shock that I felt no pain at that point. I was numb. I'm just trying to stay conscious. Now, the wound on this part of my head, that took 9 stitches, but they were triple to close the wound because the wound was so large. Anyway, after they hit me with the rifle butt, shot me the second time, they just casually walked away, and I watched them disappear into the blackness of the night. They had their flashlights, and so they're gone. The bad guys leave. They've left. I'm laying there in the mud, trying to stay conscious. I was able to. I crawled. I literally crawled through the mud, pulled myself to the wall of the concrete house, and I was able to use the wall to steady myself and stand up. Um, my leg was. I couldn't really bend my knee. My leg was like straight. I was hobbling. I don't know the damage at this point. I don't know what's been done inside my leg. I have not a clue. I just know that they shot me twice. And so I hobbled on one leg. It was tricky, but I was able to hobble around the corner of the building, climb on my hands and knees, one knee, dragging my left leg up the embankment to the porch. Then I used another wall to stand up again because I felt okay standing up, but it was like one leg and hobbling. Okay. And it was all the strength that I could muster just to do that. So the back door was open. It was still open from when I left earlier to check the generator. So I walked through that door and my friend Morris is laying on the ground. He's laying on the ground in the kitchen right there on concrete. His hands have zip lines around his wrist and his ankles. He's in a fetal position. I and I said, "Are you all right?" And I heard his voice. I grabbed a knife from the kitchen dish rack and I freed his hands and his feet. And I was afraid to move him because I don't know that his neck's been broke. I don't know. They had thrown him on the concrete, okay, on his head. He still had a nasty scar on his forehead from that moment on. But anyway, he wasn't bleeding or anything. It was just like a blow to his head, and it left a dent in his skull. There was some force behind it. So, but I don't know the damage, and I got him comfortable, and I said, I'm going for help. He knows I've been hurt. He could see all the blood on my arms and my hand. I was just covered in blood. But he's looking at my right side. He didn't see my left side. And I said, just don't move. I'm coming back. I'm going for help. Don't. I'm coming back. I did not want to leave a close friend and where he was like hopeless. Craig's gone. I'm just laying here. How long is this going to take? I had no idea. I just didn't want to leave my friend hopeless. So he says, take the truck. So I now go out the front door, got his keys in my hand. I'm hobbling and the truck. Oh my God. Normally it's 30, 40 steps up the hill. It took me like 150 steps, half steps and hobbling because he would park up the hill where there was an internet connection at the end of the day and then walk down the hill to the house. There's no internet connection in this house. So I get to the truck, which took a while, and it's dark. I don't have a phone, I don't have a light, and I dropped the damn keys. Oh my God, it was all I could do to get down on my right knee, find the keys in the dark, and then open the door and get in the truck. It took a lot of everything I could do just to get in the truck. And now I'm going to drive. I start the truck, and don't you know, this is a manual transmission. I got to shift, and I got to shift with my left leg, the one that they shot me in 2 times. So it's just, it's like whatever can go wrong is going wrong. And everything is like a push. It's just pushing me to the outer limits of everything. So I drive down the hill to the driveway, out the driveway to the main road, and I don't go to the asphalt road. I drive up the hill, and it's a dead end road. I drive to the dairy. There's a huge dairy, a couple hundred cows. That's a big dairy by Panamanian standards. And I park in front of the big electric gate. I know the neighbors. I wave to them, talk to them when they're out riding their horses. I've been riding on Morris's horse. You know, this is a country living, you know? And so I'm out of the truck. The truck's running. I'm at the gate. The headlights are on the gate. They can see me. There's music in the house. There's lights on. The door's open. I can see them 50 meters away. And the music's, I was yelling. I was screaming for help. I wanted somebody to drive the truck, MJ. I didn't know how much longer I could stay conscious. But I got to get help for my friend. And so the lights went out, the door closed, and I heard no more music. They just ignored me. And I thought, well, damn. So now I'm holding on to the truck to stay vertical. I go around the side, open the door, get back in the truck again, back out of their driveway, and drive down the dirt gravel road, past the house where my friend is still in the kitchen on the floor. I get to the main road, and I thought, okay, I'll try another neighbor. So I pulled into the yard of a house close to a lamp. Okay, there was a street lamp, so it was well lit. I pulled right up in their yard, got out to knock on the door, but the curtains were closed and there was no lights. Then I noticed that behind me were headlights from a pickup truck, which was an oversized truck where they hauled horses and cows in the bed of the truck. They had a cage over it. I saw the truck out of the corner of my eye, and the lights were on me. And there were 3 people in the front seat. And I waved my hands, and I'm saying, help. Come and help me drive the truck. Drive the truck. I need to take my friend. This is all in Spanish, but I'm telling him I have to go to the hospital. Help me get my friend. MJ. They turned the lights off. They backed up and drove away from me. That's twice. I'm livid. I'm livid, but I'm weak. I'm weak. You know, in the time since that happened, I often ask the few people that I've shared this with, I often ask them, who are the bad guys? Who's the worst? Who's worse? The guys that attacked me and killed me and then shot me, or the people that just refused help? You know, to somebody who really needed help. And I'm sure when the headlights hit me, I looked like a zombie apocalypse because I was covered in blood and I got this massive hemorrhage on my skull. So I said, okay, at that point, it's okay, fuck it. All right. I get back in the truck. I'm driving to town. Now, normally it's about a 25-minute drive. I'm driving for the better part of an hour, but I'm driving in first gear, narrow asphalt roads, afraid because my eyes shut. I have no balance. I'm losing consciousness. And I'm thinking, I can't drive in the ditch because if I go in the ditch, I'm not going to help anybody. So I'm driving really slow. Twice when headlights were approaching, I stopped. I just stopped and got over as far as I could on the shoulder and let the car pass before I continued with my bright lights on. I did not make it all the way to town. I was going to go I didn't know where the hospital was. I didn't know where the clinic was. I was going to the police station thinking they would help me. Somebody could drive the truck and we'd go get my friend. So, but before I got that far, just outside of town, and I'm driving for about 45, 50 minutes now, and in first gear, there was a huge building. It looks like a huge gymnasium, bigger than a gymnasium. It's a stadium. It was the water company. The water company never closes. 24/7, they're pumping water. The municipality. Okay. And so I pull up to the front gate, get out of the truck again. This is the third time. And I'm at the front gate and I'm yelling for help. 2 armed security guards are running from the control station to the front gate, and they've already unholstered their pistols. I'm sure this caught them by surprise. And when they got to the gate, they can see me covered in blood. And I'm yelling, and they're asking me what happened. And I said, look, we got attacked. I need one of you guys to drive this truck. I need to go back and get my friend. So Alejandro and the other security guard, they carried me. They unlocked the gate and they carried me and set me, gingerly back in the passenger side of the truck that I had been driving. And then Alejandro, we drove 25 minutes up the hill. He parked in the front of the house and went inside the house and carried my friend Morris and put him in the back seat. That got me to the clinic on the hillside, the municipality. They took X-rays of my head. They took X-rays of my leg. They haven't. I'm still in all the blood-soaked clothes. I was making jokes at that point with the surgeon, telling him to do a good job stitching on my head because I shaved my head and I didn't want a big ugly scar. And so it was something to laugh about at the clinic. And then Morris was in a neck brace, and he required a couple stitches on his head. And then I thought maybe they were gonna admit me. No, 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 no. This was a crime scene. There was an attack. There was an invasion. They don't know about being in heaven and dying and coming. They don't none of that stuff. But they knew that there'd been a crime, and so I had to wait a few minutes, and an ambulance picked me up and took me to the provincial hospital, which is about a 30-minute ride up the Panamanian highway. And so they got me to the hospital, and I was met by people with a gurney, uh, uh, detectives. They call them the OEHOTA here, which would be the FBI there. They knew that there had been a gunshot victim. They wheeled me into a special room where they could literally cut my clothes off because I was soaked in blood and most of it had dried around me. So they just literally cut my clothes off me and were cleaning me up. And that was the first time I was able to see my leg, and there was no exit wounds. There was no exit wounds in my leg. They had shot me. I could see the entrance wounds, but those had closed up. And I'm thinking, okay, this is a good sign. But I don't know the damage inside at this point. I'm thinking the bones have been destroyed. So they put a cast on me. I was asking them not to do that because I could wiggle my toes. I could move my foot, my ankle, and wiggle my toes. And I said, well, can you just wrap it and put a splint? Oh, no, no, no. We got to put a cast on. So they put this 40-pound cast on my leg and cut all my clothes off and were cleaning me up. I'd already had my stitches. But I heard the doctors, two doctors to my right talking, and they were checking my vitals and all that. And they realized that I had lost a lot of blood. My eye was completely swollen shut, and they're cleaning me up more. And I heard one of them in Spanish say the word transfusion, transfusion. And this is 2022. This is on the backside of all the COVID nonsense. And I looked at him and I yelled. I said, "Hey, no, forget that. There's not going to be a transfusion tonight. No transfusion." And they put their hands up. Okay, okay. If I got my presence of mind and enough faculties to refuse it, then they're not going to try to give me a blood transfusion because I wasn't going to go that route. So now, this whole thing started at 8:30 at night. By the time I got a hospital gown and wheeled into the salon, the emergency salon, which holds maybe 30 gurneys, 30 portable gurneys on wheels, which there's over 100 in there, over 100, and they're out in the hallway. There's a lot of needs and emergencies, I guess. But I'm laying there, and there's people right next to me. It's just like dominoes stacked side by side, and barely enough room to walk in between them. And I'm up against the wall. It's 1:30 in the morning. I couldn't sleep. I could not sleep. I think I found out later, the doctor said there's no way you could have stayed conscious that long and drove a vehicle, losing all that blood after, and then being shot. How did you do that? And I think it was the energy I brought with me in my soul back into my physical body. I really do. But later on that afternoon, a doctor came to me. Because they had heard a story, but they didn't know details. And it wasn't written on my clipboard at the end of my bed. There was no details. They didn't want a gossip mill in the hospital. But there was a couple of doctors that went and talked to the police, and then they came and talked to me and said, "What happened?" And they said, "Because we looked at your vital signs." One of the attending doctors from midnight, he hadn't got home yet by the time I woke up. And he looked at me and he says, "That's not possible. I don't even think you could do that on adrenaline." And I looked at him and I said, "Well, doctor, I think I don't think there's anything stronger than the human will to live. What do you think?" And he goes, "No, that's right. I agree with that." And then I went like this. I said, "No, no, I don't think that's right at all. I think the strongest force in the universe of, of everything is your soul's will to love. It has nothing to do with living in this life." And I don't know what he was thinking, but why would I say that? And he took a step back and he goes, "Yeah, I think you're right." But again, I was planting seeds, which is what I was doing. And so at 1:30 in the morning, though I've been cleaned up, I got a bonnet on covering the wound. I've been stitched up. I don't know the extent of the damage in my leg yet. I didn't go to sleep till about 4:30. I was just fueled by the experience in heaven. I kept thinking about where I was and now where I am, over and over and over. I was reliving it. In fact, for many weeks after this night, I would dream and I would relive it and I would experience more. I would get like downloads. Things would happen and I would remember more and more and more. So now when I do wake up, it's 9:30 in the morning and I realize that, okay, I'm laying on the same gurney. I got this cast on my leg, 40 pounds. I've got an IV running in my arm, and I woke up and I'm hungry because I hadn't ate since noon the day before. So I asked one of the nurses. I said, "What time is lunch? Or what time's breakfast?" And they said, "Oh, you missed breakfast. We tried to wake you up, but you were just it was impossible." I said, "Okay, when's lunch?" And then now I'm laying there and I'm hungry, and I'm laying on my right side and there's a sea of gurneys in front of me. And I look across all of these people in the emergency salon, and there's these two big double doors. They actually go outside, but only doctors come in. And a man walks in, and the reason he stood out, I'm assuming he's Panamanian, but no guarantee. He could have been a doctor and born in another country, but he looked Latin at a distance, but he's probably uh, 20, 30 meters from me. And he walks through this maze of gurneys straight to my bedside. And the reason he stuck out, MJ, this man, I'm 6'2". I'm taller than 99% of all that. I just stand above everybody in this country. This man has got to be 6'9", 6'10", tall, slender, tan, handsome. He walked right up to my bed as if he knew me, put his hand out. I shook his hand and he said, "Good morning, Robert." That's my first name, Robert. And he had perfect teeth. Looked like he just walked off the cover of GQ magazine. He's a very handsome man. And so he smiles and says, "Good morning, Robert." And he shakes my hand. And I looked at him. He's wearing a white shirt, gray slacks. He's got a stethoscope around his neck. So I'm thinking he's a doctor. There's no name tag. And I looked at him and I said, "Good morning. Are you my doctor?" And then he says to me, he says, "More or less." Well, who says that? I'm thinking that's weird. More or less. And then we start talking, and he's speaking perfect English. I mean, I've been in Latin America 30 years. This guy speaks English as if he was born and raised in Seattle. Okay, he speaks perfect English, and so we're talking. And he says, "Well, how are you doing, really?" And I said, "Well, I'm doing okay right now, but last night was ugly. It was just really ugly." And he said, "You want to tell me about it?" And I don't know why he asked me. Maybe he wanted to verify he's talking to the right guy. I don't know. To this day, I don't know if he was a messenger from the other side, an angel, if you will, or someone here who was tuned into both worlds. And maybe he wanted to verify he was in the right place, talking to the right guy. I don't know. It was kind of bizarre. But I said it was ugly. I'm okay now, but last night was kind of ugly. And, that's how I got this big scar here, this big wound. And they actually shot me in my leg 2 times. And he goes, "Yeah, that sounds terrible." And so we're talking and he speaks perfect English. And then he says, and MJ, he is now going to tell me the future. He's going to tell me what's going to happen. I had no idea this was coming, but this is the reason he came. And he said, "Listen." And he got down and real close, like on one knee next to my bed. And he's really tall, but he kneels down. He said, "Before they move you from this emergency salon to the second floor to, I'm thinking for therapy on my leg." That's what one of the nurses said. He goes, before they move you to the second floor, he said, they may want to test you for COVID. It's a protocol. It's a something they do here at the hospital. And I looked at him and I got real defensive. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I said, no, sir. No, sir. Nobody's going to test me for anything. Nobody's sticking anything in my nose. And if they try to inject me, I'll kill them. There will be a fight. And I will walk out those doors that you came in this hospital gown if I have to, drag in this cast and take a taxi to a friend's house. But there's nobody going to test me for nothing, period. And he goes, no, now he put his hand on my shoulder at that point and he said, no, Robert, listen, it's okay. If anyone asks you if you were tested for COVID, just simply say, Dr. Castillo already took care of that. Simple. And I looked at him and I said, are you Dr. Castillo? And he smiled that same grin as when he walked up to at the first moment. He said, more or less. And I think that why did you keep saying that? This is bizarre. But later, I actually caught one of the nurses going by, and I said, "Hey, uh, where did Dr. Castillo go? Who? Well, Dr. Castillo, that real really tall guy with the stethoscope and the gray slacks." And she goes, "Who?" I mean, this is an older nurse. She would know all doctors. She said, I don't know who you're talking about. So, and then one other nurse, I thought, let's check. I checked. The guy in the bed next to me didn't even remember this guy coming and talking to me. So I have a feeling this was all part of design. It was all planned ahead of time. So now I'm waiting for lunch. I'm in a large emergency room. Dr. Castillo has left. And that was a Wednesday morning. Okay. Thursday morning, the second day, I've been out in the hospital since Tuesday night. Okay. Wednesday morning, I have this visitor. Thursday morning, a group of doctors come walking by. You know, when doctors go to the university to be a real doctor, they have an internship. So a lady doctor, an older senior doctor, she was older. She walked by my bed Wednesday morning and said, "This is Robert Morris. Good morning, Robert." And they just kept going. The next day, the same doctor came by, the same doctor, and she had a different group of doctors. They were like 6 or 8 interns, and they've all got a clipboard, and they're pretending, well, they're practicing being a doctor. It's part of their education, right? Before they get their MD. And so they stop at my bed, and the doctor looks at her clipboard, and then she walks over to the end of the bed. She looks at my clipboard, and she said to the group, "This is Robert Morris. He's waiting for a room on the second floor when a room becomes available." And she said, "Good morning, Robert." And then she says, "Oh, and he's already been tested for COVID. The results were negative. Everything's fine. He's good to go. Have a good day." And then this group of doctors and her walked by. And I'm thinking, holy shit, exactly like Dr. Castillo told me. I didn't even have to tell them Dr. Castillo took care of everything. They already knew. So somebody made an entry into the computer, the medical system somewhere that, Robert Morris had already been checked for COVID. He's negative. He's ready to go.
Mm,
And so,
unbelievable.
yeah, that's unbelievable. It was like part of everybody says I had a near death experience. I did. But to me, it was an out of body experience because I had no recollection of even dying. I was just in heaven instantly. But that's what happens when you die instantly. You don't even remember how it happened. I didn't. Um, and there was many times when I came back. Oh, one other thing. On day two, the Wednesday, I was there Tuesday night. Wednesday, a doctor came by, and they call them runners, runner doctors. He's got a backpack on and a stethoscope, and he runs 12 hours a day. He just follows his cell phone instructions and goes this room, this patient, that patient. And he came, checked my stitches, cleaned my head a little bit more, asked me a few questions, checked my vitals, and then he says, "Have you seen the X-rays for your leg?" Because I was looking at them, and I go, "No, where are they?" And he had them on his phone. And I didn't have a phone. I had no communication. My phone disappeared the night of all this happened. So did my friend in the house. We lost our phones. They took them, and We don't know what they did when they stole our phones. But anyway, he takes his phone, he shows me the x-rays, and I go, can you send those to me? I send them to my WhatsApp. So he sends me the 4 x-rays, and I forwarded those to you before. You've got those. So he shows me the x-rays, and he goes, these bullets never touched your bones. And I go,
Unbelievable.
I couldn't believe what I was looking at. They literally took a rifle and pressed it against the bone, and I felt the pressure of that before they pulled the trigger. Not once, but twice. But those 2 bullets, and if you show this to your audience, you'll see that there's 2 halves twice. So you got 4 bullets in there, but it's half and half, and then they split. When the bullet entered, it divided in 2 parts and rotated all over inside my leg, but never touched and damaged the bones. And the rifle barrel was actually touching the bone. That's unbelievable. So I was giving praise to God, saying, "Oh my God, it was God put His hand in the way and says, nope, you're not gonna take away his ability to walk. Not today.
Yeah.
Not once, but twice." So it was days later before I was able to use one of the nurses' telephones, access my WhatsApp, and start communicating with the outside world to tell them I'm okay, because everybody was panicking. Nobody knew what happened. Like I was in the hospital for 4 or 5 days. I left on day 7. A friend took me from the hospital with the cast on, and we went straight to a hardware store. And he went in and bought some shears that you would trim a hedge with, or branches in a tree. And I went to a hotel room, and he helped me get situated. And I took that tool, and I cut the cast off. I cut it off and threw it away. They expected me to come back. They expected me to come back to the hospital in 2 weeks. And I said, no, I just never went back. I never went back. I was on crutches for 2 days, which was a nuisance. And then I threw them away and limped. And by day 3 or 4, I could bend my knee a little bit better. Within 1 week, I was walking normal. I could jump up and down and play basketball. Within 7 days of leaving the hospital after I cut the stupid cast off.
Wow.
But there's not a day goes by that I don't think about in my car between 2 worlds, if you will. And 3.5 years ago, when I was murdered, as I was, had this experience and come back. And I think had I not been listening to a lot of old out of body experiences the last 3 or 4 months, I might not have got the desire to share this with a bigger audience. And of course, Corey Brandon made that happen the first time, and that's how we connected.
That is. Shout out to Corey on that one, because he hooked us up. Yeah.
Corey's amazing. And we had a great interview, but everything that they experienced in a controlled out of body, I experienced in a near death experience.
Yeah, and that's very common for near deaths. So for near death experiences, most of the time you don't know what's happened to you. Some people do, but a lot don't. I didn't know. I had no idea what happened and where I even was. I didn't even know either. So I know the difference is that you're controlling and you're coming out of your body with a controlled out of body with an OBE. But I do know from Andre that they're very similar. Yeah. So they're very, very similar. Just one is with violence or death or something with your body, and the other isn't. Right? But having said that, wow, I can't even get over your experiences. I don't even know where to begin. So basically, Creig, you've been having spiritual connections far before that NDE.
Before I was, yes. I called the car where myself and 5 people in another car and a bicyclist, 7 people should have died. 7 people should have died that day. I don't know how I missed the bicyclist, and if I didn't miss him, he would have been dead, and then I died in a head-on collision. But I call that my near-death experience light. You just don't, you can't see that coming. But after it happened, it has an effect on you, obviously. But in my time as a Christian, from age 23 to 40, I was able to see many other supernatural events and have some things
Mhm.
transpire that uh, beyond the veil. I mean, we call them miracles. The hand of God, God moved, this, that, and the other thing. And but and I still to this day, people don't know I'm quoting a chapter and a verse, but they'll hear me say something because I'll state truth. You can't argue with truth. If you have any integrity at all and you choose to live in a world where there's truth, then you don't lie and you try to be truthful based on what you know, or at least disclaim it. This is what I know, but do your own research. I would say that. And so I,
Absolutely.
I would share truth with people to kind of find out where they're at in their thinking. And what I've discovered, MJ, is a lot of people, and I think it's coming to a head in society today. The human awareness is coming to a head where people are starting to question everything. And a lot of people are having the Truman moment where am I just in a movie because this feels like a script and it doesn't feel real. It can't be real. There must be more. And that's what got me out of organized religion. People would ask me in the last 30 years, well, do you go to church anywhere, Craig? Says, no, no. But I love God more than you will ever know, my friend. I would say that. But that
Having
was
said that, sorry, I just want to ask you, having said that and knowing your background, um, do you feel that God interjected both in both experiences?
Corey and I talked about this, and he's close with Andre, and I've heard Andre say the same things. And I kind of follow those guys. Not that I don't follow Darius. He's not really that accessible, but uh, I have watched all of his podcasts as well. But I believe there is such a thing as soul contracts, and I believe we know before we're even born. In fact, there's a scripture for that. God knows you, knew you before you were in your mother's womb. What does that mean? Well, I actually studied that. And in these days, in recent time, learning about the out of body experiences, and thinking about my own personal experiences, I know that that's true. I existed before I came here. I have known before I was in the car, before that happened in my car. I have known that I was an eternal being. I have known that I'm never going to die. I have known that this physical body would return, would die
That's
at some point. I knew that.
right.
But I knew that my soul was never going to die. I didn't quite understand the relationship between this physical world and the soul experience until I was in heaven, because I'm going to tell you, I was more physical there than I am here. More physical. My hands, my feet, my body, and I had all my memories, all my emotions, all my memories. But I would not have experienced what I did when I did to make a choice, which when I started, I didn't know, it was unknown. Well, I'm not going to stay here. I'm not going to die today. But I didn't know if that was possible. I didn't know that that was it, and I'm never going to go back. But then Corey educated me a little bit. Your soul is the ultimate authority. We're our own Godhead of our own experience here. So I think to go back to your question, I think I knew that I was going to experience death by being murdered. Why I would choose to do that, I don't know. Was I just, we come here to experience that which we are not. Did I want to know what it's like to be killed? Because I found out. I found out what it was like to be almost killed in a head-on collision, but supernaturally, it was impossible how I was saved and how I was protected. But then when they killed me and shot me when I came back, I don't know what would possess me to create that experience before I came here. But Corey says people do that for the experience. So I'm convinced that I even know the bad guys. I know who did that.
That, and there's also there's more depth behind that. If you listen to a lot of NDEs,
Yeah.
a lot of times we have a soul plan, but a lot of times we have exit plans. So there are times in your life when you could have taken an exit
Uh
and you
huh.
choose not to. For some reason, I don't know why, but some souls write that into their soul plan. So their pre-birth plan. And
That makes
so
sense.
just say you might be I don't know, ready, and you might have taken that out. But I can't say that for sure in your case, because it sounded like you weren't really given a choice. You just made a
No,
choice.
I made a choice. I took
Yeah,
authority
but it sounds like.
because Corey said I was probably having a life review, because a life review is really you judging yourself. And I was feeling the
Well,
pain of what I could have, should have, would have done and did not finish. And I wanted to come back
did you
to,
see
for,
something? So
what's that?
usually the life review is something that they show you. So when you're on the other side, many NDEers have been shown parts of their life that they have gone back to, and how those affected others from what they've seen. So what ends up happening is that the person that you affected, say negatively or happily or anyway, you will
Yeah,
feel that exact same thing.
yeah,
So usually many NDers say they've seen a screen come up in front of their face.
yeah.
They've seen a television, or in the sky. They've seen many, many different types of visions of them, usually younger, and how they
Yeah, it
affected
wasn't like
others.
that. It was like I knew in my mind the domino effect of what my death would mean to my stepchildren, to my family, to my future family. I mean, there's things going on in my life. And I was able to, while I was there, get confirmation on many, many, many things, personal. And that's exciting. Those things are
Very,
happening.
that's
Those things
very
are happening.
exciting.
Those things are happening right now. So it wasn't, and that goes far beyond the little few, that, Dr. Castillo, whoever that was, more or less, visited me in the hospital. That was phenomenal. Uh,
Do
yeah,
you think that that was God speaking to you in your mind when you were on the other
hospital.
side?
That's what I originally, for the last 3 years plus, I thought that. But in the last 3 or 4 months, I since had thoughts that probably not. Maybe
Why
someone
do
that
you think
knows me.
that?
Well, I think your soul family. I think that we do have a soul family, and I think that that was part of that experience. Was it one person in the person Godship, as your question uh, would lead one to believe, uh, possibly. But I think that I have a lot of friends. I think we have a lot of friends on the other side. And I made this comment to Corey, to think that our soul family cannot interject or intercede or intervene in this physical realm. I think that's foolishness, because I know what happened on the highway that day, on the Peasley Canyon Highway at 60 miles an hour. That's impossible without an intervention. It doesn't make sense any other way, because physically you can't explain that away. Cars do not move at 60 miles an hour at right angles and drive themselves.
Exactly.
That doesn't happen.
You have experienced a spiritual transformative experience at that time. It could have been more. Just like you say, like a glitch in the matrix. I have heard this many, many times of people who were driving somewhere, and all of a sudden they were driving somewhere else, got lost, had no idea, and ended up 45 minutes from home when they were only 5 minutes from home.
Uh huh. And it's like a portal
They
opened up and moved you.
But at the same time, I
I
could
would agree.
say that would have been an innocent point for you as well, but you didn't take it. Thank God. I
Um,
don't know what it was. I'm
I
only
don't,
guessing
I
at
don't,
this point, but
I don't think
it's
that was,
very
I don't think that was
interesting.
an I don't think that was an exit point, because I knew that I was going to die and there was nothing I could do to stop it. So I took my hands off the steering wheel and put them in my lap. Okay.
But your
So
will could
if
have
that,
made you feel like you didn't want to die. So your
yeah,
will is way
subconsciously
stronger.
in my soul, yeah,
I mean,
I
you're
hadn't
on
thought
your
of it
way
in
to
that
pick
much.
up your son. Well, nobody knows. We're literally guessing at this point. And
Yeah.
it's just another thought, just another way to think of it. There's no right or wrong. There's just another
I want,
thought.
yeah, I want people who are listening to be encouraged, because there's so much more than what we're looking at with these eyes.
Right.
There's
That's
there's
right.
things happening around you all the time, always, or even when you're sleeping. And so be encouraged that there's so much more to what this is. This flesh
That's
suit is
right.
so temporal. It's a blink of
That's
an eye.
right.
I felt like I was in heaven for hours, but I was only there a few minutes.
So when you got hit on the head, you woke up, you opened your eyes, and you were right in heaven,
I didn't
basically,
even open
right?
my eye. I didn't even open my eyes. I was just instantly where I was.
There,
With no
right?
recollection, no recollection of a blow or falling. But I knew that
And
I was
now,
dead or I couldn't be there.
right. And you remember having a body.
Yeah, it's physical, very
You had the
physical.
clothes, looked around, you could feel it on your feet, everything, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The I could
Do
feel every
you
blade of
think
grass on the bottom of my feet as I walked on that grass, and I've never felt that sensation walking on the grass here. It was just it's like your senses are multiplied. We don't even use two strands of DNA, and supposedly we have 12 or 13. They say it's junk DNA. That's not true. I just believe that that's our human condition and part of the restraints
Mhm.
that we're 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 in here. We are literally bound by time, distance, and space, but we can only decode 0.003 of the light spectrum. So when your eyes are opened, they're really open. It's more
Right?
physical than here, much more physical
Oh,
than
I
here.
bet it. I don't deny it whatsoever. So if you were like there and you had that experience where you just blink of an eye and you were there, do you think that that might be what happens when we actually die? Do you think that's something that we would experience when we actually pass over?
I think um, when your soul leaves your body, okay, you're there. I know there's an electromagnetic field that holds all this together. Well, if you're dead at that moment, that magnetic field that holds your soul, instantly your soul is gone. Okay. Now, in my case, it was blunt force trauma. There was no pain. Okay. So I suppose though, if you were in pain and suffering at that moment where death happens, there is no more pain. It was total bliss, unconditional love, unbelievable joy, happiness. Because that's your true state. That's you. That is you.
Just like opening a door.
Yes, I do. I
Just
do.
like
And
once
see,
you get past the point of whatever you're going through, this blunt force trauma or someone passing for a long period of time, you know, once you get through that, I feel the same. I feel that we might just open our eyes and be somewhere else. I
yeah.
don't know for sure. I'm hoping that that's
Uh,
the way
we,
it is.
well, we cross over from this side to the other side, but the other side is here. It's all around us all the time. It's just separated by frequency. And this, the heavenly realms are much closer than we know. You know, that's why I say that our soul family. I know for a fact that they can intervene in this realm
Yeah.
and do things, but and I can't explain how that happens, but I just know what I experienced, and there's no earthly explanation for what happened when I was 27. It would have been tragic to die at age 27 in a head-on collision, but it wasn't meant to be. But that prepared me in more ways than one for what was happening when they killed me. Because when I've had a lot of time now in retrospect to look back at both events, and I can see how the two are intertwined. I've been on the other side one time without dying, and one time death took me there. But there's no reason there is no other explanation for that.
Let me ask you this, Craig. Why you? Why do you think
Oh,
both
oh
those
yeah.
situations had to happen to you?
I have asked that a billion times. Why me? Why me? But then there's been a few, not many times, because neither one of those events in my life have I shared with more than, say, 2 dozen people in my lifetime. That's going to change because I know how many people
Yeah.
are
Oh, yeah.
watching. That's changing. But I have seen the impact up close and personal with a few people, just a few close friends and immediate family that I shared that with. In fact, one of my closest friends in Los Angeles, when I've known him for over 20 years, and I had two other close friends that have died in the last couple of years. So he's one of my oldest friends living. And he said to me after sharing the details, everything that I've shared here, he said, Craig, be careful how you share this because PTSD is real. You don't need to relive that. You're going to set yourself up for mental anguish and mental trauma and post-traumatic this and that. And I just, we're on a telephone call. And I go, I don't think so. That's not going to happen because I know what happened and how it happened and how I came back. And there's no reason to be traumatized by that. I look at it as a miracle, supernatural, bizarre, surreal. There's a lot of words I can use to describe this. Being on the other side, and having that experience and then coming back to this life, I'm a changed man. There's no getting around it. I was a very upbeat, positive guy my whole life, even before the thing that happened in the car. But I'm anxious now and looking forward to sharing this with more people. Even more, I'm looking forward to leaving my body in a controlled state. I have a lot of motivation right now, and I'm close. I've been so close, and it'll happen. You'll be one of my first and new friends that will know when that happens. I will want to talk to you because I'll be excited. I know.
So having said that, so that question I just asked you, was there anything that changed your way in life after that event? Like, did you fear even living in Panama anymore? Like that maybe that would happen again. Like sometimes we have a little bit of PTSD after an event. Like doesn't have to be a long time. But I mean, come on, you were really attacked and murdered. So I mean, that's kind of scary.
Well,
did you feel like that?
I chose not to live in a house on the hill in the middle of nowhere in the mountains with a generator. I'm about 2 hours from the Costa Rican border in the second largest town in Panama, living in a small hotel, if you will. It's just like a studio apartment. And everywhere's close and everywhere I walk. And, I suppose it's true that for the first year or so afterwards, I've always been real conscious, aware of people around me, behind me. But that comes from living in Costa Rica and Panama and Ecuador. And that just comes from my normal living down here. But I've never lived in fear since that night. I have lived in protection. I know beyond what I can physically do to keep myself safe. I know that I have help. I just know that. And so to answer your question, no, I've never been fearful about that. And I think that's one of the reasons, that's one of the biggest things that hold people back from the out of body experiences is fear of the unknown. I have none of that fear. And that's why I'm a little surprised I haven't left my body in a controlled state yet. But I know it's going to happen because I've been so close. But I'm reevaluating my life, my diet, my thought processes, spending more time looking inside, spending even more time meditating and so forth, looking beyond the physical, looking and looking inside. If you want to see more of the spiritual, look inside.
So do you think that your NDE may have set you on this path to OBE?
I think it lit a fire under me.
There you go.
To be visiting the other side. There's a reason that I'm so excited. I don't know what's waiting, but I know there's a lot waiting when I leave my body the next time. Because I know I've already set all my intentions. I know where I want to go. I know the information I'm looking for. I want to know things so that I can bring that back here. And I think it's going to be impactful. If it's only to wake up a handful of people, I don't care. I have a fire not in my belly. I have a fire in my heart now to leave. And
so there's your reason.
I think that's
your reason.
I think that's the reason. I do.
There's your reason.
When you ask that question, I have a real strong conviction about what you just said. I do.
Wow. I got shivers now. That's your reason. Well, what an extraordinary journey you've been on, my friend. Wow. You know, and not only, I want you to know too this, like you're on telling your story, and this is going to live on. Your family, your grandkids. So many people are going to use this as a digital legacy and maybe even be able to understand things when they look back later on in life and go, oh my, this is what's happening. Find your video and go, oh wow, maybe now I'm going to explore.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I haven't thought about that until just this moment. Maybe via this podcast, other people will catch that fire to want to go to the other side. That would be wonderful. And
Absolutely.
to your audience, let me just tell you, don't ever doubt that the unseen world is not real, because it's more real than here. I can even back that up with the scripture if you want to get technical from biblical text. Okay, this reality we're in, this is but a reflection of what reality really is. When I even say that to myself, it says that doesn't, multiply that times 1,000, multiply that times 1,000,000. We can't we can't truly understand what that other side really is until we see it for ourselves. You can
That's
have
right.
faith and you can believe, but I know what's waiting. I know what's there, and that's why I want to go back so bad. And Corey is my younger
You
brother
okay
in
there?
crime. So he's my younger brother in crime, encouraging me. Where he had some real kind words to say with me, off camera when we met. But it's exciting. It really is. These are exciting times, and the world is changing. I think people are awakening, and if my testimony can just wake up a few more and encourage a few more, we can literally move mountains as far as a mindset. Let's get consciousness aware of what this reality really is, what our true state really
Start
is.
to live
This
consciously,
this is
right?
this is not this is not it. This is not it.
You know what? I just want you to know that this story is going to touch more people than you could even imagine. And all of us
Mhm.
together, podcaster, guest, doesn't matter. It's us
Yeah,
together. It's Corey, it's me, it's the Jeff Morris show, it's Andre, it's everybody together
yeah, yeah. You're right.
building a bridge for people to
Well,
understand
those guys
what's going
motivated
on.
me. Those guys
Exactly.
motivated me. I first saw Andre on your podcast. Those guys
That's right.
motivated me to. Those guys, they actually motivated me to come out of the shadows, if you will, and tell her what happened to them, because I hadn't done it.
And that was no accident either. That wasn't a coincidence either.
No.
No, that was there was a reason. I feel the same thing for myself, but I know for those who want to follow your journey or even reach out to you, is there a way that they can?
Let me give you another email just for
You don't have
this.
to give it to me right now on
Yeah.
here. You can email it to me and I can put it in the show notes. Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Now, if you could offer one only piece of wisdom to those who fear the unknown, what would that be?
Oh, that's a deep question, because fear takes
Mhm.
many, many forms. Many forms. Fear of loss, fear of death. That's a big one, obviously. Um, Fear of losing your
Fear of coming
freedom,
out of your body.
fear of coming out of your body, fear of being controlled, fear of, I think
Yeah,
I mentioned to Corey, fear of all these rules that we're supposed to abide by and go by. I told him I'm a rebel with a cause. I don't follow rules just for
right.
the rules. I don't like being controlled, but we live in an environment that controls us from the cradle to the grave. So
Right.
I would, to answer your question, I would say, well, you can experience heaven without going to heaven. Okay. And because truly, and you can find this in a lot of different ancient texts, not just Christian texts and biblical texts. You can, the kingdom of heaven, reality, it's within you. And so I would say, learn to trust yourself, because anybody can tell you something is real, and even have a great narrative to go along with it to where you believe it's real. But is it really? I've asked questions all my life. Tough questions. Tough questions. That's why I had to leave organized religion. The questions got me, the right hand of fellowship. I entered at 23, the left foot of fellowship. I was booted out at age 40 because nobody wanted to hear these questions anymore. Okay. Because there's so many things in even ancient texts that are guarded and kept secret that are distorted for us. But before you just receive and believe something as truth, you decide if it's true or not. It's gotta line up with your world and who you really are. You'll know if it's right, and you'll know if it's wrong. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to know that it's something right or wrong. And if you're not sure, if you're just not sure, that's okay. Look for more information and don't make a final decision, but don't be fearful of it. Don't be fearful of it. This life is not all there is. You never die. You never die. The real you never dies. And so there's no reason to be afraid of death, even though I'm not saying that flippantly. Okay. I just have a knowing in my heart of hearts that I'm going to be here forever. And I knew this physical shell was temporary. And I really knew that after 7 people were not killed on a highway. That should have happened. And so you ask yourself, why me, and what's really going on, and what's real? Okay. You can escape the Truman Show. You can escape the Truman Show. You really can. You got to go far away and get out of the movie set. But far away is right inside you. You don't have to sail away to the end of the movie set. You can go inside yourself and figure this out.
Right.
I remember Andre saying something, his mom talking to him from the other side. You can figure this out without dying. You can figure this out without dying. You got it. You're close. You'll figure it out. I think that's one of the reasons I didn't see anyone when I was there. Fully confirmed this. If I'd have seen somebody, especially somebody that I know that has passed, and I had seen them and maybe went further into that paradise where that body of water was, and seen I don't know, a city or more people or people that I knew, I might not have come back. I might not have come back for nobody, because there was a huge pull. I did not want to. Part of me did not want to come back. Love pulled me back into those relationships that I have here. Even though love there was so much more, I was hurting for the fact that they're gonna all my closest family and friends are gonna hear about my death, and I didn't even know how I died. It wasn't told to me, but it didn't take long to figure that out when I came back. It was obvious.
Your story is so heroic. You know that, right?
Yeah, the rest of that night, saving my friend Morris from getting him to the hospital. It was very ugly. It was brutal. It was a lot of blood.
The pain. Only imagine.
Yeah.
But you were saved for a reason.
Yeah,
You're still here for a reason.
My friend believed that the reason he knows the story well now too, but he knows that I came back. If I had not come back, he wouldn't have made it. He would have died in the house. So it was an experience that it goes beyond anything we see in movies today. Let me tell you.
Well, Creig, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your courage and your openness today to share your story here with us. Because I know it takes a bit, right? I want
It,
to make sure that I say thank you because I can't get over how much your story is such a powerful reminder of resilience of the human spirit and the reality that there's so much more to life than meets our eyes.
even in this life, you can do more than you think you can. When you're feeling down and out and oppressed and, you know, fearful, whatever that is, you can do so much more, so
And you
much
know
more.
what else? I think that your experience will awaken something deep in a lot of people watching today. So thank
I
you
hope so.
for sharing it. And to everybody
MJ, it was
watching
my
today,
pleasure. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
you're welcome. You're so welcome. And to everyone watching or listening, thank you for joining this episode of The Return. And may this story remind you that we are all connected by threads of our stories and the mysteries of what lies beyond. It is through these connections that we find meaning, comfort, and belonging. And until next time, stay open, stay curious, and keep returning to the truth within you. No idea how to. Oh, there we go. I stopped it, I think.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.